Not that anybody will notice.
This conference will now be recorded.
Hey, everybody.
I would say just before we start, for people, we have people in the audience that might not know. For the people on the video conference, they can't hear you unless you're in front of a microphone. So you got to be at the podium, or we have a floating microphone. I'm not going to be handing that out probably, but just so you know, if you have a comment from the audience, we might be able to hear you fine here in the room, but those on the video conference you really can't hear. So just keep that in mind.
But it's not an invitation just to talk while I'm doing it.
Are you're looking right at me? Not that I would ever do that.
I was side-eyeing Mr. Bedford there beside you, that's why.
That's why I'm behind him. Mike, thanks for fixing that kitchen.
Okay, I have 7 o'clock. I will call the June 3rd DeSoto City Council meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Lane.
Here.
Daniels.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Present.
Ritter.
Here.
Murdoch.
Here.
All present.
I would now invite you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Our first item tonight is the consent agenda. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have approval of the minutes from the council meeting of May 20th, approval of pay ordinance number 903, and authorizing the mayor to sign revised real estate purchase contract for sports complex land. Anyone have any issues they would like to remove from the consent agenda, or a motion to approve?
I think I do. I don't know.
I'll make a
Maybe.
motion.
You're on.
You're on the agenda. Your item's on the agenda.
Okay, I
Yeah.
just see my address, so I thought I should.
I'll make a motion, we approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes. Okay,
Who seconded that?
Ritter?
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Call to public. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to comment about any matter relating to city business not listed on the agenda tonight. Comments under call to public may or may not be acted on by the council during this meeting. There's a 4-minute time limit. Does anyone wish to address the council tonight under call to public? Step up, state your name and address, please.
Thank you, sir. My name is Doug Bedford. I live at 32170 West 83rd Street in DeSoto. I also have Mark Lyston with me. I know he's on Frederick. What's your address?
8541 Frederick Drive.
What we wanted to talk about, we've actually talked with a few of you. Mike Brungart and I spoke, well, not really spoke, I guess we spoke once. We transferred emails back and forth a few times. I believe Mark may have spoke at one point with Councilmember Hanamichael, and then I saw the mayor, and I talked to him on a couple different occasions, one by phone. What this is about is the VFW, and again, we're going to address that here in just a few minutes with the fireworks sales. What we're trying to do with the VFW, or would like to do, is to move the sale of the fireworks inside the building. And then in doing that originally, we talked with Mike, we talked with Steve Chick prior to him retiring, and then also Cameron. The goal with that, or what we were needing to do, understandably, would be to install a fire suppression system, a sprinkler system. So we said, hey, we got a few bids, some people came out, and then at one point, Cameron, maybe you can tell me, or if you remember who it was from the city with the water. I can't remember, but it was,
Marshall,
I'm sorry?
the water department, Marshall Goodnight,
It was not Marshall, unless Marshall was there.
or Billy maybe.
Yeah, because it was somebody
Okay.
else whenever I saw him working. Ultimately, what happened is whenever one of the fire suppression companies came, they indicated, and if you're familiar with where I'm talking about, 84th and Penner, there is a fire hydrant, and then directly behind the wheel is another fire hydrant, so almost straight in front of the VFW. And they indicated that the pressure would not sustain a sprinkler system. And so what we wanted to do was to come and to find out what would need to be done. I know in talking with Mike, also in talking with the mayor, I think that it would have to, part of what would need to take place would be a replacement, which could take years and money. I completely understand that. What we're hoping to do is to see if we could somehow, with the building built in the early 2000s, to see what the codes would have been at that point. What we typically do at the VFW, whenever we do the fireworks sales, is we have an existing insurance policy for the post. That week alone, we purchase an additional $1 million policy. And what we would also do is double that if necessary to move it in. The whole plan would be if we could move it inside whenever the replacement lines ultimately takes place. At that point, if we would continue to do fireworks sales, we would be in complete agreement that we have to either cease and desist with it inside or upgrade it and put in the sprinkler system. The fear that we have with the sprinkler system, or the suppression company had, and I'm going to refer to Council Member Ritter, as his experience is much greater than mine. I believe that if a fire truck would hook onto one of those, it could have the ability to virtually collapse the line. Does that kind of make sense?
With the current system and the control rates that are there, probably yes. What if it's not sustainable, the flow rates that are needed to protect the current code?
Yeah. As an organization, we're willing to write the check. You know, we'll write the check and we'll put in the sprinkler system. We'd cut a check today. But is it kind of a moot point if the infrastructure wouldn't allow it? We do have an alarm system currently installed, and we've had that in the facility for years. It was upgraded September, October of this past year, and whenever that was upgraded, there are alarm monitors for fire upstairs and downstairs in the basement area throughout the facility. We just kind of want to come and talk. We definitely don't expect an answer today, but we just wanted to find out what we would need to do, or if that would be a possibility. Just with the weather and everything else, us getting older, for lack of better terms, as I told the mayor recently, it would just be more user-friendly for us. Am I missing anything?
No, I think that covered everything. I mean, we are willing to spend the money to buy it, but like Doug said, it's a moot point to spend $45,000 to have a system that's not even working. So.
And just so you know, whenever the construction was done on the post in the early 2000s, it does have 5/8 cent sheetrock throughout the facility, upstairs and downstairs, including, well, I think that's more of a suppression, not a suppression system, but a fire rating, I guess you could say. We would welcome any questions from anybody.
Okay. Questions from council?
What was the needed flow?
You know what, and I should have had the email that I sent you, Mike. I don't know if you still have that handy or not, but it was, we'll see if we can pull it up for you, Councilman. It was, I want to say that it was 300 gallons a minute. Does that sound right?
I think that's the existing what we have, and I think what was
And they were
needed
saying
was
it
around
needed to be-
1,000, I
Yeah,
believe.
I was going to say 750, but
Yeah, that sounds right. I don't have the ability to pull that up right now.
I think
Doug.
Mark,
Okay.
we have to get our glasses on to cheat a little.
This was just a bid, I'm sorry.
I
No,
can
that's-
find that out, and what I can do is email you or contact, I can email Mike and let him know what that would need to be for the suppression
Yeah.
system.
In general, so just by way of background, generally, as you know, those require somewhere around 1,000 gallons a minute of sustained pressure with residual pressures over 20 psi, typically, is what you'd see with something like that. And yeah, no, as you know, Councilman Ritter, there's a big area of downtown that has 4-inch lines, 2-inch lines, that doesn't have the type of capacity that would be required for a fire suppression system. Basically, Y to Y, all of the old downtown area would be like that, with a few exceptions. But it's very common to have that condition in older parts of all cities, really. And to remedy the fire flow at the VFW, we could extend a line down Penner from the VFW down to 85th Terrace, where we have a larger distribution line that would more than likely would accommodate the type of flow that you need. I haven't done a detailed estimate on that, but I would think it'd be somewhere around $150,000 to $200,000 to do that. And we could get that done. If we wanted to say, let's go do that right now, we could get that done before next 4th of July, for sure. It's not unreasonable to think we could do that. Getting to the fire code and the reason for the requirement for the suppression system, basically it comes down to a change in occupancy for the VFW, the banquet hall area. Right now it's an assembly occupancy, and so when the building was built, there wasn't a sprinkler requirement because of its size and its capacity limitations as far as number of people. But when you introduce fireworks into there, that becomes a high hazard occupancy type that just requires a sprinkler system. And there's no amount of alarms or insurance policies that could eliminate that requirement. There's really no mechanism for a waiver. Certainly from staff, probably not really even a mechanism for the council to grant a waiver. We could probably jump through some hoops to do that, but definitely would not be advisable to have inside fireworks sales without the fire suppression system. It is doable. Jake's Fireworks has done it, and but it needs a suppression system. There's also some nuances associated with that occupancy rate. Firewall, right? You talked about 5/8 inch drywall. That might be sufficient, but there may be some other fireproofing that needs to be done. So we'd want to make sure that you guys are fully in the know about what the codes might require next year if we want to head that direction. We just want to make sure that all those bases are covered. Yeah, we didn't, yeah.
Quick question, Mike, just for my personal edification. Would a high hazard occupancy have triggered the need for a suppression system in 2000 or whenever the
Yeah,
VFW
and
was
Cameron's a
built?
lot more knowledgeable on that than I am, but he did some research. It looks like back as early as 1967 with
Oh, okay.
the building code. Definitely, when the building was built, would have required it under that occupancy, but I don't think that was contemplated at the time.
Right. Well, I don't think it was legal in the city yet. That was.
Well, yeah, maybe.
Maybe 67, but not
No, yeah,
2000.
not when you did the addition.
67, everything was legal.
We had a, yeah.
Cameron, when they remodeled the bar area, what's the occupancy load in that? You guys put?
It didn't change.
It didn't change, so is it under 100 or is it?
In the front half,
Yeah,
yes.
it's under 100.
Yeah, the 100, that's the current trigger for sprinklers and assembly occupancy. When it was built under the 2000 building code, the limit was 300. That was the magic number that would trigger those, which is why it doesn't have one currently. That was revised, I believe in the 06 or the 09 code is where that threshold came down from 300 to 100 people in an assembly type occupancy.
Yeah, as long as you guys are under that 100, yeah, because that would be pretty good. Yeah, I don't see any wording.
would we be correct? I mean, if we are wanting to move forward, this year, you know, and it wouldn't definitely happen before the 4th of July this year now, but if we would look forward to, or make the move to go ahead and try to install a suppression system now, would we think that there's a good possibility that a year from now, that something, that it, I mean, because like I said, you know, in the late fall, we can go ahead and maybe during the winter months, maybe easier to get a crew in there, a professional crew in there to install a sprinkler system.
Well,
But-
we could work that way. You know, the council would have to make a decision about the funding for the water line downtown Avenue. That'd be the thing. But we would also want, again, to make sure that you knew everything that might be required. If there's something that comes up, I don't want you to be in a position where we've got the new water line in, you've got the fire suppression system in, and some other weird thing in
Sure.
the code comes up that we didn't know about.
Well,
So
we'd
we
appreciate that.
want to make sure that everybody's on board. And then also a council decision on the public infrastructure. Wouldn't hurt to put the line in. Wasn't on our radar screen before now, or it would be on the CIP probably. But there's avenues, there's funding available if we wanted to make it happen. We could do that.
And we do water line projects about every year. I mean,
Yeah.
we have the next couple of them planned out, and it didn't include this one. But that doesn't mean look at a different plan or add
It's a
another
very
line.
reasonable thing for us to.
Right.
It definitely might help with the adjacent property. And instead of that, I think that that's what's in the
And your insurance will probably go down too.
Yeah. You like that? Okay, thank you
So-
very much.
I'll bring you some water up there when you're, actually I won't because I'm gonna be out of town. but
There you go.
I'll think about it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Question on firefighting in the area. So if the VFW were on fire, given the limited line size, how would you fight that? How would that fire get fought now?
I don't speak for the current fire district, but they do have timber services. They have, 3 instrument stations that carry at least 12, 15.
So it would be off tanks, not off of.
Assisted off tanks that we,
They would use the existing line and then use the rest.
And then since it's in the image there, and you, Mike, you said from Y to Y has a lot of undersized lines. You don't need to zoom out. Hillside Village, does it have?
So the line that we would, it does have fire flow capabilities. It has sprinklers, I believe.
Okay.
I'm almost certain.
Yeah, it's.
So the line we're tapping into would be right here, and it comes down 85th Terrace and it's into
Okay.
here.
So it's really from 85th Terrace around through downtown?
might even be able to, I mean, we don't engineer this right now, but we could pop underneath the railroad easement right there. And be a short-
Yeah.
Well, I'm wondering, is there anything, do we have those same issues downtown?
We do. Well,
We replaced a lot of lines downtown.
we did. We replaced the loop around downtown. So
Okay.
it might have, I
So
can't
the
tell you.
church space is adequately served?
You know,
It's-
I can't tell you what the flow rates are. It would surprise me if they're 1,000 gallons a minute, but they're probably better than 300 for the downtown area, because we did do some line replacements around the downtown 15 years ago. So.
But I'm assuming with its remodel, it's got a capacity over 100?
It would have been.
It'd be a sprinkled
So it's
space.
sprinkled?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
So they,
So downtown's okay, it's just really
Yeah.
maybe more some pockets, not
Parts of the
everything.
neighborhoods
Yeah.
around. Yeah.
Which the neighborhoods are probably adequately protected, you know, size of fire or whatever wouldn't demand the capacity that a structure like VFW.
Right.
Okay, I was trying to understand the extent of the water line limitation.
There are some smaller lines in town, like Crest, that's out east. It had a 2-inch bed. The other line, if you go down there, it collapsed it with water line. There should just pieces from close.
I guess I might add, we did talk to the CDBG, there are some, as you make 2-inch lines, especially Lakeview Heights. So there are some ways around town that still are less than 4-inch, which is pretty standard in the old part of the city.
I did hear that the city of Greenwood was going to some sort of grant or funding. Water system in the city, so I don't know if that's something that's out there.
okay, we'll take a look at that. Anyone else on the call to public? Are you going to talk about?
Yes.
8225, we have an
Yes.
agenda item for 8225.
Yes,
So unless you have something other than 8225, you're welcome to, all right.
I will not mention 8225.
Okay.
When a council directs a condemned house to be condemned, how many months does the council decide when that demolition happens? I live in the vicinity of condemned properties in DeSoto, and for 25 years I put up with the excrement show as I clean that up a little bit, and I'm fed up with doing that. If a condemned property is condemned, it is the condemnation of the property, it is a blight of the neighborhood. I lost a very good neighbor because one of the reasons they left is because of the excrement show that went over there since they did move in. Now, they did make a tidy sum on the property because DeSoto does tend to value in properties. I can assure you, if any of you lived across the street from a condemned property, that property would be gone by now. And I've dealt with this for 25 years, and I'm fed up with having to deal with this condemned property. It has a toilet in the front yard, okay? That toilet in the front yard of a condemned property needs to be cleaned, but at least removed. I'm fed up with the council doing things that probably improve some of the areas they live in. But if you drive through downtown DeSoto, I've got a place I want to sell in the next year or two. And this condemned property needs to be going. I didn't mention any addresses. I'm done. Got it. KJ's
Someone
council.
dropped the toilet, my name's Nate.
Do the right
Someone
thing.
dropped the toilet off in my yard, to be nice, I think, and I'm selling my property. And it's, what can do with my
We need to
property?
make, you're talking, you want to, let's move on to the next agenda item, and
Okay.
then we'll go through the report, and then.
Okay, how did you get up to yell like that? Can I not
Rachel,
get up?
your discussion is on the agenda, so you have to wait for that to come up to talk about it, okay?
Right,
So give us just a couple minutes, okay?
right.
Cameron, is it possible for them to have an above-ground storage tank for their suppressor system to help them with the fireproof, to help with that? Is that something we might be able to
Hugamaki has a
figure
similar,
out?
Hugamaki has a similar storage tank.
Yeah, so I mean, that might be a consideration for them. I just wanted to.
All right, we will move on to old business. Consider fireworks sales permits. Cameron, is this your item?
So, I was not able to attend the last meeting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. But I understand that, there was some confusion there. In speaking with the parties involved, there was some confusion on our end as well. The way things were portrayed to all parties involved. We've since cleared all this up. Speaking in relation to Jake's Fireworks, in the past, they've had the Methodist Church run their sales operation as a nonprofit organization. Therefore, they've been eligible for the waiver of the $500 fee. Now that they have a building in town and that they own property, they are operating it as a for-profit business, and the Methodist Church is, in their eyes, contract labor. They are being paid a set fee to run the registers and keep shelf stock, which under our ordinance does not make them eligible for the waiver. We have adjusted the agenda item, the approval for you guys to remove them from the groups that would be eligible for the waiver of that $500 permit fee. So we still have the same three applicants that we've had in years past. We got Jake's Fireworks in their building, and then we've got Garrett's Worldwide Fireworks, which is being operated by Kathleen Tillery, or Kathy Tillery. I think I typed that wrong. And they operate in the tent in Harp's parking lot, and then as well as the VFW and their sales. The VFW is the only one that meets the requirements for the waiver of that $500 fee. So they're the only ones that we are recommending that you guys grant that waiver to.
Okay. Questions for Cameron? Did that clear your questions up for you?
Yes, it did, thank you.
I just have one.
Go ahead.
Cameron, when they sell fireworks inside that building and, that they have assembly on the backside, do they have to, can they continue to have that large assembly in the back that, they store the fireworks in that?
In which building?
Like Jake's?
In Jake's?
Yeah,
So-
Since they have the large assembly that's in the back.
When they sell fireworks, they strip everything out of there. The entire building becomes high-risk occupancy. There's shelves or warehouse racking on the back wall. The registers are on the front. The entire building is converted over to high risk for that week of sales and then converted back because the code doesn't allow for assembly and high risk to exist inside of the same structure. So it is converted back.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Someone like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion, we approve the firework permits for Jake's Firework, Garrett's Worldwide Fireworks, and DeSoto VFW. And also waive the $500 permit fee for the VFW.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay.
I do have one question for Cameron, if I can.
Sure.
You just said that high risk and assembly can't coexist. So if the VFW moves inside, does that mean that they would have to not allow assembly areas during that time of sales?
That is correct. And I've had discussions with both Mark and Doug, and they've both made it clear that if that's the only requirement, they could close the bar down for that week of sales and then go back to running the bar operation.
Okay. Moving on. Update on property at 8225 Delaware. Are you going to lead this discussion, Patrick, or?
Yes, council, just as I set out in the memo that I provided in the packet, this city council, we were prepared to demolish the structure. We followed all the process to get in a place to do that. And right at the tail end of, I think it actually was a meeting where you were making that direction, Cityscape Properties addressed you about a sale contract that they had on the property and indicated that they felt like the property could be rehabilitated and they were prepared to do that. They would do that right away. The council also mentioned about the junk in the yard, that was a concern. But at the end of the day, you did indicate that we would hold off on the demo to see what happened with this sale. Kind of the reason that prompted me to update you is my understanding is that transaction sort of has fallen through, that I know Cityscape Properties is still interested in the property from the standpoint of perhaps buying it at the county tax sale, but as far as being able to move forward, getting the title issue cleared up and then the sale going through, I don't think that is currently on the table. And just as sort of a FYI, it's my understanding from looking at the probate records and actually talking to the only heir of Bernard Gardner, who previously owned the property, that a determination of descent would have to be done. He would have to sign the paperwork and he would be the sole heir of that property. So I understand, Majel has been trying to sell the property, maybe has a transaction in mind, but until that determination of descent is done through Johnson County Court, I I don't think it's even possible to transfer title. So, essentially, I wanted to put this in front of you to determine, how you want to, address this situation where, the reason for you holding off, essentially, unless, someone tells you differently, but my understanding is that that has sort of evaporated. So we're back in a position of, sort of being in limbo. That as far as I know, nothing's going to happen with the property quickly. So with that, I'll answer any questions you have.
Questions for Patrick? Just you, not yet. Well, we'll get you. I'll get you up. I just want to make sure the council has no questions.
So, to be clear, the issue associated with any transaction, cityscape or otherwise, relates to the inability to have clear title on the land. That's the primary hang-up there.
Correct. I mean, from the city standpoint, we don't really. Yeah. That's for a private
there's
sale.
nothing that there's nothing that indicates that there's an attempt to clear that up or that there's an action underway.
That's correct.
And it's also in tax delinquency, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay. Okay. Now, Major, if you want to just get up, state your name and address, please, and then I'll give you.
My name's Mabel Gardner, and I live at 1825 Delaware Street. I don't live there. I've been living at the hotel in DeSoto. I don't know the address on my computer.
Okay.
But I don't know what it takes to condemn a house, but that house doesn't have 40% of its rafters burnt. None of my rafters are burnt in the stationery in my house. And I know I owe back taxes, and I don't mind losing the back taxes, but I don't want my house tore down. I mean, it's the back porch that burnt. And there's a commode in my yard. I don't know who dropped it off there. Someone probably trying to be nice thought I might need a commode, but it's sitting there. Is that all I got to say?
Okay. Anyone else? Yeah.
Hello, my name is Blythe Roberts. I represent Cityscape Properties. We do currently have a contract with Nagel that we're working on. We're kind of in the process of probate. Honestly, I do agree with you. At this point, it's not likely that we do get through probate just because we're still waiting on signatures and things like that. Honestly, my recommendation would be to go ahead and put the liens on the property in regards to cleaning that up, because those do not go away when it does go to tax foreclosure, and we're prepared at that point. We're trying to get through it, but it's kind of a long process. So if that did happen and the city did decide to clean it up, then those liens would not go away. I mean, I'm just thinking in your standpoint, because I know you guys have a lot of people that are on you about wanting to get that cleaned up. From the tax foreclosure, they're telling us that it looks like it's going to be in July. So we're kind of asking that you possibly hold off demolition till then, just because I know that costs you guys a lot of money to completely demo a property.
Okay. Any questions from council? So one thing we hadn't, we had not we had a contract, we had taken bids for demolition. We hadn't considered a cleanup and marketing of the property. I don't know, does that idea have any traction amongst the body if we were to contract with someone to haul debris away in the yard and get it mowed, and then it would still be an uninhabitable structure? It would just be an additional lien against the property.
Well, it would be uninhabitable and still without clear title.
And without clear title.
So
it would, right, the only thing it would allow is another bit of time to go.
A bit of time.
So Patrick, when it goes for tax sale, will that clear up the title work if it's a tax sale?
It would, but unfortunately, I talked to the county lawyer that's in charge of the tax sale, and based on Majel appearing in that case in front of the judge and sharing that there was a sale contract with Cityscape Properties, he requested that the judge, he agreed to remove this property from that sale. I did talk to him about, because I talked to Cityscape Properties lawyer, and he wanted to see if Ryan, the county attorney, could put it back on the sale. He indicated he'd think about that, but he was not warm to that idea because he felt like he kind of stuck his neck out with the judge to remove the property from the sale, so he would be going back to the judge, having to sort of unravel what he represented the judge. And as to cleaning up the property, I did on numerous occasions talk to Andrew. I know, I'm sorry, I did miss, and tried to ask her to talk to Majel.
I took it all down to the big trash day, and the big trash day didn't pick it up.
But,
so I'll have to have someone with the truck. I can have it cleaned up by the weekend.
so,
And I quit mowing it and I started mowing it again because I felt like I was just mowing it for no reason. But I've always kept it in the yard. If someone dropped a commode off, it's not a dirty commode. They must have thought I needed a commode.
so, yeah, I think the tax sale, because of the title issue that is not, the tax sale, would be the only in the game without demolishing, but that's probably gonna be, I don't even know when the next tax sale would
December
be.
now, I think in July, well, I guess they might do them every month, I don't know. I shouldn't say, I have no idea. I just know that I've been waiting on a tax sale on a piece of property on Kill Creek that I've been bugging them about for 5 years, and it still hasn't happened, so. Thoughts from council? I mean, I guess so the options I see we have are to go forward with the demolition. We'd have to get fresh bids for that and get that scheduled, or some intermediate.
Why is it being
thing.
demolition? No one's even looked at my structure. No one's looked
No,
at my house.
not here to debate that with you. That's been deemed an unsafe structure by our codes and department.
When did
so,
anyone come inside my house
yeah.
to see my structure?
I'm not gonna debate you, Majel. That has already happened. That bridge has been crossed. So where we are now is to decide whether or not we want to demolish it, put it on the schedule for demolition again, or take some other. And I would just look for comments from anybody as to what you would entertain.
Yeah, my comments is to go forward with the demolition. I think we've gone on too long with this. I don't think without a clear title there's ever going to be a sale. It's going to take a while. I think there's activity going on there that shouldn't be going on now with people living there. Majel, I know you say you don't, but I hear all the time from other people that you are. So it's something's going to happen at some point. And, Majel, it's not your house to be even debating on, so that's the problem. It's not in your title.
My husband's house, Donnie Gardner's my husband.
So I would say
Okay.
moving forward with the
All right.
demolition.
Well, I mean, to get to the point that we're at now and even having this discussion, we've had public hearings about the demolition, there's been board hearings that have not had appearances, not had comments up to this point. So, I mean, agree with you, Mayor, that how we got to this point is a done deal. We've gone through all the hearings and comments and requests for comments and letters being sent out, so it is a matter of pretty much what do we do now?
Kevin?
I concur that we should move forward and seek new bids for the demolition and assess the property.
Yeah, I support moving forward as well. I agree with Lori. I think we did try to show a lot of good faith by having an opportunity for Cityscape to jump in and try to acquire the property. It just doesn't feel like it's going to happen between the inability to clear the title or relying upon a tax sale and the unknown time frame for that. I mean, I'd be afraid you'd walk away from it before the tax sale situation ever occurred, just out of pure frustration. So I think we need to move forward.
All right. Thank you. Danny?
Can I add one more thing?
Let me get the last council.
We need to go ahead with we've been in good faith with this, and we waited, and I feel that we need to go ahead and, I'm with you, Mayor and Lori, let's go ahead on demolition of the property and get it going.
Yes.
Thank you. I totally understand. We're doing everything we can, and I understand you guys are kind of under an issue too with it ongoing. Really, what we have our probate attorney set, it's just needing signatures and final things to go through that. And then after that, yes, it does take a couple months for us to get through that to where we can have a clear title. That's kind of all I can say, is that we're doing our best, but I understand what you guys are under.
That's what, unfortunately, that's just something with part of this business that we're involved in. It's not the first time.
We didn't get your name.
Oh, Cody Roberts.
Cody Roberts?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
Unfortunately, it's just something that we deal with quite often, and we did have every good intention of proceeding with the purchase of the property. You know, we have over 30 properties here in DeSoto, so we're well invested in the community and trying to make it better. But again, I understand where you're coming from. Like I said, we've had every good intention to follow through on our part and our contracts.
So,
yes, sir.
If I can just briefly address, I did speak with Donald Gardner, who, by my looking at the probate, he's the person that needs to act on it. And at least earlier today, I mean, I think he's just kind of washing his hands of the property, and without his cooperation, hands are kind of tied. Right. Then you can't. I mean, that thing to file in probate. You know, my understanding is just impossible, unless he's, signs off, and I did talk to your lawyer as well, and he agrees that, yeah, that's what has to happen, is Donald Gardner, we need to.
He will sign on.
That's, my understanding is that's what's been the holdup, is Cityscape wanted Majel to sign off as well, since she used to live in the property, but when it was indicated that the only person with interest is Donald, that paperwork never went back to the lawyer. So,
Okay.
So I guess there is still the time that we receive the bids.
Right,
For you to try to, and for you to get Donald to sign, and maybe you can still pull something off in the next few weeks.
What does that process look like? How long, what's the normal timeframe for that before when you receive bids versus when you accept them, and kind of?
well, we already have a bid, and I've talked to the contractor. They just need to update their bid, so it probably won't be a real long time.
They need to schedule their work too, so I don't know what their schedule is like.
Yeah. But it just so happens we have another property that a determination of descent was filed, and within 30 days of it being filed in Johnson County, a hearing was held and it was done. So the probate thing can be done pretty quick, but if you don't have signatures, then, obviously it can't be filed, so.
If we were able to obtain signatures and move forward, would that change things if you were obtaining bids by the time the next city council meeting? Just out of curiosity, if that were to happen somehow.
I think if we're not relying on a tax sale to resolve this, I have no faith that that's going to happen for anybody in any reasonable time frame. So probably more likely, but I mean we've extended a deadline. We were ready to make we made the decision and we're ready to move forward when we suspended. So I don't know. 30 days unreasonable from today, or are we at the point?
I mean, pretty much my view would be if they had it by the time the bids were here, which would probably be next council meeting, so not even.
Well, you probably couple it with, you're right, because we have to approve the bid, so that'd be the next council meeting. And then it would be a question of, understanding what the lead time is on their schedule. There may just out of that happen to be 2 to X number of weeks
Right.
before, the crew actually shows up if they could pull something off.
Yeah.
But as far as just safe time frame to say, this is a time frame we know is acceptable, I mean,
It's 2 weeks.
it'd be the bids.
Yeah, I
It'd
think
be the
if you-
next council meeting, because I don't think I'd want to go 30 days.
Yeah. So if you can secure those papers because that's about when we'll have those bids in by our next council meeting, then come back up and then we can talk again.
We'll do our best, but I appreciate you guys giving us some time to do that.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I guess by our action here, we would be telling you to reach out to the contractor, update the bids, and then we'll consider those at our next
Yeah,
meeting.
we'll get an idea about his schedule too.
Okay.
Very good.
New business, received 2020 audit report.
Yes, council. Our auditors, Burbridge, Trahan and Company, have completed their work on our 2020 audit. They did that last month. Karen Lynn with Burbridge, Trahan is joining our meeting by video conference to present those results. You have in front of you the hard copies. I included a digital copy on the council folder. You have the hard copy of the council report and then also the background audit information. So I think I'm going to turn it over to Karen to allow her to present those findings.
Good evening. I appreciate a few minutes of your meeting this evening to go through the results of the audit. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, thank
Yes,
you.
we can. Yep.
All right, very good. What I'd like to do is to go through the report to the City Council, which I see there on the screen in front of me, in this report are the results of the audit and are the important pieces that I want to communicate to you about the audit. So turning a couple more pages in that document, just past the table of contents, are the required communications. First, our responsibility is to perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards, as well as the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. Generally accepted auditing standards require that we plan and perform the audit with the objective of forming an opinion about whether the financial statements are free of material misstatement. So we plan our audit with that objective in mind. We were able to form an unmodified opinion on the financial statements, which does state that in our opinion, the financial statements are free of material misstatement. The financial statements are prepared on the regulatory basis, which is the basis that the KMAG, or the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide, offers as a method of preparing the financials instead of generally accepted accounting principles. And so that's what we used to call the Kansas cash and budget basis. They now call it the regulatory basis. In our opinion, the financial statements are free of material misstatement on the regulatory basis. Other things that we look at as we perform the audit, we look at accounting policies, we look at any significant or unusual transactions, and anything that's related to accounting estimates or management's judgment. In all of those three areas, if there's anything unusual or anything that's not consistently applied from one year to the next, we would bring those to your attention as a council, just to make sure that you're aware of anything in those areas that's unusual or out of the ordinary. There's nothing that came up during the audit in any of those areas that we need to bring to your attention. We did identify two audit adjustments during the process of the audit. They're included as the very last attachment in this packet. The two that we identified, neither of them are unusual or really anything out of the ordinary. They are just adjustments that are made to roll forward the fund balances. So nothing that should be of concern. Sometimes when audit adjustments are made, it can be an indication that the financial accounting system is not working properly or has deficiencies in it. That is not the case. as a result of these two adjusting entries don't indicate that. They are just roll forward entries that are pretty standard and don't indicate any issues or problems. The next couple of items that are identified here would be items that we would bring to your attention much earlier than tonight if there were any issues that fell into these categories. Things like disagreements about audit-related matters or about accounting issues. Things, for example, if we asked for items during the audit process that weren't provided to us, or disagreements about anything related to the audit. If we had any issues or problems in these areas, it could be red flags of other more serious issues, and we would bring those to your attention much earlier than tonight, not here at the very end of the process. So because we haven't had a need to discuss those with you earlier than this evening, that is a good indication to you that we didn't have any of those issues. And I would instead like to bring to your attention and let you know that we had great cooperation from Bonnie and all of the team members there that we worked with during the audit. Everything was ready, prepared for us, and we were able to get through the audit very well. We did work remotely through the audit process due to still dealing with the pandemic and COVID issues. But everything worked well, and we were able to get through the audit in a timely manner, and we're able to get all the information we needed electronically. So we were able to work well in getting the audit resolved and finished. The last item that I want to go through with you is the item that is on letterhead, just after that last page that we looked at. This letter has items that we discussed during the audit process that's required by audit standards to be in writing to us. A lot of good information in this letter that supports the financial statements, that supports the things we discussed during the audit with management. The information is important for you as you read through the financials to help you with your fiduciary responsibilities towards financial accounting matters. We do encourage you to read through this letter to really help understand a lot of the things that are in the financials. The date that this letter is signed is the indication that there is agreement that the financials are ready to be finalized, and that is the date then that becomes the date on our opinion. So that, and as I said, this is good information in here, and we do encourage you to read that as you read through the financial statements, and a lot of good information there. So with that, unmodified opinion, and we did not have any deficiencies that we needed to report. So very good conclusions from the audit process. And with that, I would open for any questions that you might have.
Questions from council? Okay.
Council, I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did want to point out that Bonnie Bennett is online. We make her attend one council meeting a year as in her condition of employment as other duties as assigned, and this is it. So she's remote tonight, but she is there. And I, again, as I do each year, want to thank Bonnie for her work. Just a fantastic job of keeping us all very aware of the financial checks and balances, and really appreciate her work and the work that's done on a monthly basis, getting the bills out, and getting things paid. So appreciate that, Bonnie. Thanks.
Okay. So we would need a motion to accept the audit, or the audit report, is that correct?
Karen, is that something that's needed, or is this just an advisory mechanism here tonight?
Usually there is a motion to accept,
Okay.
not approve, but accept the report.
I'll make a motion to approve the audit report as
No,
presented.
we accept, sorry.
I'll make a motion to accept the audit report as presented tonight. Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane,
Yes.
Ritter,
Yes.
Daniels,
Yes.
Murdoch,
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay, thank you very much for attending tonight.
Thank you very much. Appreciate the opportunity to work with you.
Okay, we will move on. Receive results of sales tax analysis from Columbia Capital.
Yes, Council, I'll briefly introduce this topic. I think this is the sales tax projections that we've been working with for the last 5 years or so have been a source of discussion during budget times in the past. Not so much this year, but years past, we've wondered, it's a good problem to have, but they've exceeded our expectations. Our actual collections have been above what we've been projecting. And so that's a good problem, but it's a little concerning that there might be some underlying reason for that we're not seeing, and that reason might go away someday and we'd be left with sales tax projections that are too high and impacting the budget. So a sales tax on the general fund represents about 35 to 40% of our revenues for the general fund. If something bad happened to our sales tax, that would not be good for the city. So we wanted to get a better handle on the causes of the increases, to get a better handle of our sales tax profile and how resilient that might be to a downturn, or to help identify if there's a single reason why those projections consistently exceed our expectations. So what I did, I reached out to Jeff White at Columbia Capital. I think you all know him. He's online. To help us get a handle on this. And Jeff employed the help of his colleagues at the University of Chicago. And Jeff, I'll let you introduce Paulina, who's also online with us tonight. And I'll turn it over to Jeff to present the findings of that analysis.
Thanks, Mike. Mr. Mayor, members of council, Jeff White with Columbia Capital, good to be with you tonight. As Mike gave you the background, one of the things we're challenged with in our effort to respond to his request is that sales tax collection data in Kansas at the individual business level is confidential. So we don't have access to that. So we worked with Mike, who reached out to Kansas Department of Revenue to explain our concerns and desires, and Kansas Department of Revenue was incredibly generous in sending us a decade of aggregated annual sales tax data for both the city and for Johnson County. So that data set gave us the ability to look for patterns across classes of businesses in the city over a decade and compare that to what's going on in the county as well. This type of statistical analysis is outside my wheelhouse, so I used my phone a friend option, contacting Dr. Justin Marlowe, who's a former professor in the KU Masters of Public Administration program. Justin's now at the University of Chicago, and he connected me with a quite brilliant master's student, Paulina Ugalde. So Paulina is going to walk you quickly through her analytical approach and findings, and then I'll wrap up with a few concluding thoughts, and certainly we can try to answer any questions that you might have. Paulina?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paulina Ugalde, and today I will be presenting the findings of the analysis we conducted on behalf of the City of DeSoto. So the city has asked us to evaluate the drivers of the sales tax growth, as it has seen a significant increase in revenue compared to that of Johnson County. DeSoto has had a 117% growth from 2009 to 2019, compared to a 60% growth in Johnson County in the same time period. We analyzed whether there were any unique drivers of this growth as a way to help it understand its sales tax base better and to allow it to build early warning indicators if those key drivers experience any downturns in the future. So building this analysis, as Jeff said, is challenging, as under Kansas law, the sales tax return data for a particular business are confidential. So these data that we received are tabulated from 2009 to 2019 for all the variables from both locations. The sector and subsector variables use the hierarchical industry classification system, also known as the North American Industry Classification System. Overall, there are 20 sectors and 99 subsectors, and as we move along the presentation, the distinction between them will become more clear. The collections variable describes the amount of sales taxes generated by businesses within each subsector for each year, and the number of establishments describes the number of taxpayers for each subsector for each year. So we organized our analysis using a wider to narrower approach. So we first looked at what top-level sectors are driving the growth of the sales tax to identify which were worth diving deeper into. We then pivoted to explore the subsector trends of the selected sectors to identify where the growth was coming from. Finally, we used an index we created to rate the performance of all subsectors. We used two main metrics to compare the performance of the city and the county. One is the relative contribution, which refers to the proportional representation of any given sector to the sales tax collection. In other words, how much money does each category contribute to the total pot of money received? Secondly, we looked at the change in the number of establishments, which refers to the number of taxpayers of any given sector and the subsector over time. In other words, have businesses category been increasing or decreasing? And last, we built an index for the subsectors that combine these two metrics into a single number in order to make the interpretation more intuitive. The index weighted the relative contribution and the change in the number of establishments equally. So now, next slide, please. So now we are looking at the first level of analysis at the sector level. The first thing that stands out from this comparison is that as of 2019, the city has a more diverse mix of sales tax generators than did the county. The city has 6 sectors that made up more than 5% of the sales tax revenue, as identified in the box on the left-hand side graph. On the other hand, the county has 4 sectors that provided more than 5% of the sales tax revenue, as seen on the right-hand side. It is worth noting at this point that one of the limitations of the evaluation and the data is that we cannot determine what the unclassified establishments are. We can only point out that there was a significant growth in that category for the city. So next slide. We are still looking at the sector trends in this part, but this provides the change in their relative contribution to the sales tax over a 10-year period. So this is tracking how much money they are contributing, which we use to rate the sectors and pinpoint the ones that are driving the change. Driving your attention to the left table, the retail trade sector has a red arrow pointing to it. This sector showed the most significant growth across all sectors for both the city and the county, with an almost 15% increase. The 4 sectors in the table stand out as drivers of growth to the city, as they represent more than 5% of the share of collections, as seen in column for 2019 that displays their makeup, and they have also experienced the strongest increase in contribution. So going back to the previous slide and the difference in diversification of the local economy, the 3 sectors in the table to the right make up 77% of all the county's collections for 2019, while the 4 sectors on the left-hand side make up 66% of the city's collection. So diversification of the economy for DeSoto means that it does not have all its eggs in one basket. So its income source is not entirely dependent on the outcome and performance of a narrow set of sectors. So now we have pivoted to evaluate the performance of key subsectors. Next one, there you go, of key subsectors. Tying it back to the previous slide, there are 4 subsectors within the mentioned sectors that experience significant growth in the city, as seen on the left-hand side table with the red arrows. One thing to point out from this comparison is how stark the growth of the city's subsectors have been when compared to those in the county. The city's growth ranges from 1.8% all the way to 46.3%. On the other hand, some of the key subsectors of the county have experienced a contraction. The ranges for the county are between negative 2.8 and 4%, a much smaller change over time. So to finalize the analysis, next slide, we are now looking at the results from the index we created. And just to recap, we used the 2 measures, so the change in number of establishments and their contribution to the sales tax collection. We combined them, giving them each the same weight, and made them into a single value that we can then use to rate the subsectors. Higher scores represent subsectors with greater influence over the sales tax revenues, while negative or lower values have the opposite effect. So the higher the value of the index, the better the performance of the subsector. The table on the left displays the 10 subsectors that have performed the best in the city, while the table on the right shows the bottom 10 sectors that have not performed that well. So as a follow-up to this study, the city should consider developing a periodic monitoring system of the individual businesses within its top sales tax contributing subsectors. By periodically assessing the year-over-year change in these companies' returns, the city has the opportunity to visualize downward trends and to anticipate resulting impacts on its operating budget. It may be beneficial to rerun this analysis every 5 years or so to assess any macro changes in the city's sales tax drivers. And with that, I conclude this presentation, and I will take any questions you might have. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.
And Mr. Mayor, one last note, there is a much denser written report that Paulina prepared that's included in your council packet. And that's hopefully we've whet your appetite to take a deeper dive into those information. So happy to try to answer any questions.
Any questions from council?
Sure, I'll
Go
jump
ahead,
in. A couple caught my attention. If you could jump to figure 6 in the main report, and you know, Pauline, maybe you can help explain these. Yeah, keep going a little farther. Keep going. There. So first, just explain the top bar that is the other that's all orange.
Yeah, so actually, so that's one of the limitations of the data that we have, that we don't know what is making up that other category.
Okay.
So the same has been classified because of the data we received from the Kansas Department of Revenue. We don't know. We can't.
Okay.
We can't find
And you only had 2009 data for other.
No, that means that that other section was not present in 2019.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay, now food and beverage.
It was probably poor data reporting in 2009. That would be the conclusion I draw, Pauline. I don't know if you feel any differently than that.
Yeah, so probably over the years, whatever businesses were going into that other category have been assigned to whatever they belong to. So that's why it's not showing into 2019.
So it's easier to maybe understand subsectors a little bit in our community because we don't have a lot of different sales tax generating establishments. So food and beverage obviously took a huge jump over the decade. Would food and beverage stores be grocery stores? So would that be where our grocery stores have shown up?
That would be my expectation because most groceries in Kansas are taxed. Yep.
Yeah, and it would be under that NAISC code.
Correct.
Okay. So that would explain that. And then, so if you talk about food and beverage and we think about DeSoto might, I'm going to assume like a Dollar General would probably be a general merchandise store.
That would be my expectation, but again, we don't have any way to know because we do not have access to the underlying business data.
Yeah, so, you know, I was trying to think of things that have gotten built in the last decade that would fall in those, and it's pretty dramatic just how much of a change that has made in our sales tax collection, just, you know, probably 2 individual stores. The other one was, if we can go ahead to figure 8. Plastics and rubber product manufacturing. I've got to assume that's Rearing Pacific. And so I've got to presume that that means that they've had an increase in their procurement of raw materials to make their product.
I was assuming maybe they're selling to tax people that have to pay sales tax.
Okay, you're right. This is tax they collect,
This
not
is their
tax that they
collecting.
pay
Right.
on their product. So that means that Rearing is growing in business. I mean, this one just has 1 bar, but if you go to your index, you also then indexed plastics and rubber manufacturing in that top 10.
I would also note, Councilmember, that generally speaking, in the data, if the department concluded that we could make the conclusion that you just made about an individual business, they probably would not have reported that data. So there are probably more than one taxpayer that is filing a return under this code in the city.
Okay. Now, what would not, can any of us here speculate what non-metallic mineral product manufacturing might be in our community?
The rocks, the quarry.
The quarry.
Is that, actually, that's
maybe
county.
That's
though,
county,
right?
yeah,
That's
we
not
de-annexed
ours.
Maybe
that.
the penny sand, or the sand.
Pennies, is that?
But they haven't, I mean.
I was thinking the quarry, but then
Yeah, it got de-annexed.
yeah.
So again, it's just interesting to think about, as we've talked about, we've seen sales tax growth. It's a significant part of our budget. Are we at risk for it plateauing, or do we happen to have growing businesses that, can continue to sustain a growth rate? I would expect if since food and beverage store sales are a significant part of the retail sector, which is a very broad sector, that we'll probably see that element of it plateau, because they will probably kind of hit their
What if Good
stride in
Sense,
sales.
Good Sense might be part of that? They're
The
still
food
expanding.
service is another one though, so isn't it, help me out here, isn't food service a separate subsector?
Food
Yes.
manufacturing.
I thought I picked up on that, because that would pick up,
Yeah.
the little restaurants in town and, Good Sense and other things like that. But that might indicate that we've reached a growth and we may hit a plateau. I was also surprised that manufacturing products, and we may not be far enough into it yet, are not showing up yet as that significant of an increase if we attribute it to the increases in new housing construction that have occurred in the last 4 or 5 years. Maybe that just hadn't shown up in the trend yet.
Yeah.
I thought this was interesting, so.
Yeah, it was
Sorry.
very interesting.
That was really interesting.
Yeah,
Appreciate the report.
it'd be a bunch easier, or, for us if we kind of knew where some of them were coming from, but obviously we can't. But it is kind of
Not
interesting.
specifically, but we can kind of hypothesize. And I guess, Pauline, you did say you have a table of number of establishments for each of those subsectors, correct?
Yeah, so I have the raw data, which I can use to see how many, to count how many, different businesses are within each sector or subsector.
You didn't report that, though. You just worked it into your index, is that correct?
Right, it's built into the table.
So do you know how, to the question about if a single entity would have given itself away, do you have a feel for the subsector that had the fewest number of reporting entities? Is it 3 or 10?
I mean, just by memory, I can't tell, but I could look at the data and, get a feel for that and get back to you on that. But just by memory, I don't remember.
Yeah, because the other thing, I guess, is the flip side is if it is in those small numbers, it's interesting just how much of an impact a particular retail subsector can have on us. So.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Pauline. That's a very interesting report, and I like the idea that we would revisit this in a few years to see. I think we're going to want to do that to know.
Yeah, I mean, you watch it, I don't know if it's 5 years or
Yeah.
2 years or what it is, but it would be interesting to see how it changed, particularly if we start to see an inflection one way or the other in our sales tax collections.
Well, and this kind of draws a baseline as far as where, why,
Yeah.
and how, so any future reports will be able to start to normalize and marginalize based upon patterns that now have been established in the report.
Okay.
Well, Mr. Mayor, I wouldn't wait too long because I fear that this one's hourly rate is going to be quite a bit higher than 5 years. That is.
Yeah. So, thank you. Thank you both. Now you can move on with your evenings. Next item, consider parade permit for DHS homecoming.
All right, well, we're going from a pretty heavy-duty subject with the sales tax collection to one of the most basic ones that we have had for the last probably 30 years. But because it is a temporary use permit and it's on the title, it does require council approval. So therefore, you have the homecoming parade for the DeSoto High School on September 22nd. Start will be staged here at City Hall, go down 83rd Street up to middle school and conclude there at the high school. So something we've improved on for the last many years. And you don't collect the application fee for the parade permits. So now I'll stand for any questions.
Questions on the parade permit application or a motion to?
I'll make a motion, we approve the temporary use permit for the parade.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Okay. Moving on to your next item, consider bids for 82nd Street sidewalk project.
All right, thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a long time in coming. This is actually our 2020 Community Development Block Grant, and we did get $76,000, nearly $77,000 for this project. As you know, we went through consultant selection, we went through a public engagement process, estimates, and ultimately Council decided to move forward with the project on the south side of 82nd Street. The engineer finished that up probably a month ago, so we put this out for bid. We had actually 5 bids, and then before I was able to open the 5th bid, USA Concrete withdrew their bid, so we never opened it and returned it to them. We did get an estimate from PEC for about $203,000 for the project, and that came in pretty much in line with what Kansas Heavy Construction out at Tonganoxie had put in for their bid. Kansas Heavy Construction, as I know, we haven't worked with them here at DeSoto, at least during my tenure. I know they bid on projects, and they've been a reputable company around the area for a while. People said they work from us. Like I said, they have tried.
I'd worked with those guys on the last project I did when I was at CFS. They were GC, real good guys to work with. They did a great job. I don't have any concerns with those guys at all.
Yeah, I can echo that. We've had good experience with them.
Any questions? Sorry to interrupt you, Brad.
Oh, no, that's quite all right. Yeah, it's
Or a motion to,
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept the bid from Kansas Heavy Construction to complete the sidewalk project on 82nd Street in an amount not to exceed.
I'll second that.
okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Hanamichael.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you, Brad. Cameron, will you want to tell us about the fireworks display application for the city's 4th of July event?
Yeah, so Walden Company, who has put on the city's fireworks display down in Riverfest Park the last several years, to my knowledge, is applying for the permit to do it again this year. Standard application. Everything was reviewed to be in accordance with our ordinance in regards to setbacks from buildings and spectators, and everything on their plans has checked out. Patrick has their insurance for review, and we are recommending the approval of the permit for that fireworks display.
Okay. Questions for Cameron?
Is that all American?
I am not sure. I believe
Walden Company's what the application.
Yeah, Walden, most of those fireworks companies like Walden, I know that on their licenses, so they are one company that's supplying it. The person that's actually setting them off is a part of a different company.
It says doing business as All-American.
Okay.
Yeah,
On their
I
license.
shot for them for years and they changed names, that's why I wanted
Yeah.
to come back. I know.
Someone want to make a motion?
Yep, I'll make a motion that we approve the fireworks display permit for Walden Company.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion of the motion? Roll call, please.
Lane.
Yes.
Ritter.
Yes.
Daniels.
Yes.
Murdoch.
Yes.
Hanamaker.
Yes.
Motion carried.
Thank you.
Okay. 2022 budget discussion. It's a pretty thin piece of paper here, Mike. I
It
don't know
is,
what-
council. I don't have any new information to give you. This is here as a placeholder, as is our custom. We put it on every council agenda until it's approved.
Okay.
So, unless there's anything else you want to bring up, my goal would be to have a draft of the entire document for you by the June 17th meeting. I don't know if I'm gonna meet that goal, but I'm gonna try. So we'll take it up again then. So,
But we're going to be a little bit pushed on our schedule.
we have an extra 6 weeks.
Right,
We
so-
can't have the public hearing before August 1st, nor after August 20. So we have to wait around. If we're done, we're done. We have to wait around till then.
So now the question could be, what does a $150,000 water line project look like in next year's budget?
Well, interestingly enough, I just received an introductory email from the state of Kansas relating to the American Recovery Act funds and the use of those funds, when they will be deposited. It looks like DeSoto's in line to get between $900,000 to $1 million in those funds, and the guidance from the federal government can be used for infrastructure, water and sewer.
There you go.
That would be a prime target for me.
Okay.
I know we haven't even started those discussions about what to do with those, because, we just, funds won't be deposited until July. We have
Right.
2 years to spend them, so there's no hurry on that.
Right.
That would be my advice.
Do we get those funds in 2 chunks?
2 chunks, yeah. The first chunk is 75%. That will be this July sometime, and then a year from this July, the remaining 25%.
Mike, are those being allocated to the state or the counties?
For large cities, it's straight to them, and for large counties, it's straight to them. But for the smaller counties and cities, it's to the state. The state's sort of administering. So the email I got was from the state. It's passed through. I guess they have some reporting responsibilities there. But it's through the state for us.
Okay. All right. Advisory report, and we don't have an executive session, do we?
No, sir.
Nope. Advisory reports. Mike, what do you got for us?
Well, I'm sorry to report, there's been a snafu with this silly tractor lease. I've talked about it twice. It's silly. It's sort of a rollover lease, but here we are. Last time we talked, you wanted clarity on the cost and annual lease rates for the Kubota equipment, and we were headed down that path. But the worldwide computer chip shortage caught us, and Kubota cannot produce the tractor that we specified. Is simply not available. So what we've done is work with them to come up with one model smaller, still a much bigger unit than we've had from John Deere, but one model smaller with a batwing mowing attachment that will still allow us to maintain there's 2 wings that fold down, and they can do so independently, and the rotors are independent, so we can still sit on the road and mow the side of the shoulder like we wanted to with the other piece of equipment. So the cost is a reduction. The annual fee on the previous unit was $88.20. The annual lease on this one is $69.28. I don't think, because I don't know that I necessarily need council approval, but I wanted you to be aware that this happened, and that's a picture of, this is the actual unit that they have reserved for us. So we intend to move forward with this unit on the 4-year lease. think it'll serve our needs just fine. So that was unless there are objections, we'll head in that direction.
I'm not seeing any objections, so
Very good, then I'll
move
stop
forward
talking
with the
about
mower.
that. The only other report.
Question?
Oh, I'm sorry, Danny?
Is there a question, is this bat wing, I thought the other one had a hydraulic arm that
Yeah.
went out before, was that correct?
Yeah, that's correct, Danny. It's a little different. The previous one had that hydraulic arm. Now it's not a boom arm like our boom mower, but it was a hydraulic arm that would extend downward to a back slope along the side of a road. This batwing mower does a similar thing. We can take the right wing and put it down while remaining on the road surface. So it serves the same purpose. It doesn't quite have as much reach as the other unit did. But the good thing about this one is that we don't have to engage the blades on both sides. So we can leave the left blade disengaged, not spinning, while we're mowing the side slope. So we think this one will serve the same purpose. The other one's just not available, and even if it was, it couldn't be towed with this tractor.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No problem.
So will we lose that capability of that swing out on?
Oh, no, we still have our boom mower.
Right.
Yeah, it's
So now
in
it's just-
inventory.
This was just to mow basically along the edge of the road, but to have an arm, a mowing deck that's
No, I'm all for it.
tilted down to meet the slope of
Right.
the
Yeah.
ditch.
Yeah, so I'm using that boom arm.
Yeah, the boom mower is,
Yeah.
it's still going. We'll have it. Yeah. The only thing I had to otherwise to report was I'll be out of the office next week on vacation. So if you need me, my availability by phone and email will be spotty. I'll leave Patrick in charge while I'm gone.
Price is going up. City clerk and.
Kind of spotty too.
I know. Us-
Kind of spotty too.
You got a lot of jobs next week, Patrick.
Yeah.
He's got to get that packet out on Friday. We're setting him up for success on that one.
All right. Well, Patrick, he just set you up. You're next on the list, so.
Well, I object. Just kidding. I don't have anything to report. Thank you.
All right. Brad?
Nothing to report, just briefly, we did talk with.
Brad, you got to pick up the microphone or Danny can't hear you. Sorry.
Nothing, I guess nothing major report. We are working with Little Joe's. They've been trying to get in and do the final overlay at Carriage Oaks, Carriage Drive, can't remember the subdivision we talked about all the time. But so it's on the schedule. We're going to get there. It's just been the spotty weather. We might be able to get them there tomorrow, but keep our fingers crossed.
Okay.
And we have been working also with the contractor around Weir Construction. They've had some issues, some storm drainage along 95th in Waverly. But trying to actually get in all the pipes for hopefully the next big rain, but they had some real trouble this past week, so we had several calls.
Okay.
I did see Walter meeting with Little Joe's yesterday out there.
Okay.
All right. Anything from the city clerk's chair tonight, Patrick?
She did leave a little note in the minutes that now retired with a smiley face. So that's all I got.
All right, thank you. Cameron, you have anything you want to bring up to the council tonight since you're here? Okay. Council comments. Danny, do you have anything for the group tonight?
Nothing, Mayor, thank you,
All
sir.
right. Lori?
Yeah, just a couple things. First question is kind of around the bad tasting water. You know, there's been comments about that on Facebook, and granted, just some people complained, oh, it's always been that way, but in truth, the last week it was really bad, like really, it still is kind of bad. Is that
Yeah.
What causes that? Because if it's the rain, I don't quite understand.
No,
I mean,
it's
what,
not-
what's
it's not
going
the
on?
rain, it's not
Is
the
it
treatment
something that's being
process.
addressed, or?
Yeah, so as you know, we coordinate with the fire department to do flushing and fire hydrant maintenance. And we kind of have a training program each year to show how that's supposed to be done. What sometimes happens is that maintenance gets done, the fire hydrant gets opened up, maybe they test the flow on it, but then shut it down too soon before all the sediments is flushed out of the line. And so then it remains in the line to go up into surface lines and cause odor and taste problems. That happened this spring, and it happened again more recently, just last week, I believe, or over the weekend. We've addressed that. We've shut that program down for now until everybody can get on the same page, and so that we can have some availability to go around with those crews that do that. The message, however, is that although taste and odor problems are there, we don't, it's not recommendable to drink it, but it's safe. This stuff is, it's not harmful from a health standpoint. Don't wash your clothes in it, obviously, it'll stain clothes. Well, nice and white.
And I was just blaming Roger for my.
It's not Roger's fault.
Did they do it were they in cul-de-sacs, or they in areas?
Kevin, I can't say exactly where it
Those are most common.
happened.
Oh, no.
Yeah, because they just don't get, and for a long time, they didn't get flushed enough.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Now that they're getting flushed on a regular basis.
It's just some growing pains with that program, I think.
Okay. Second question, which I've been meaning to ask, and this probably isn't really the appropriate place, but I'm gonna do it anyway. The old storage place on Lexington is really looking pretty crappy. Is that something we're working on as a
We sure
folks
are.
thing? Is there, that's on our
Which
list,
one of
right?
you?
Cameron, great.
So, that is on our radar. Walter wrote a letter to the owners. We don't have high expectations. The ownership is out of Nevada. Not real sure what they're gonna do, if they're gonna do anything. They've been given 30 days to basically secure the building, because the building, the southeast corner of the building is, the roof is peeled up. There's a lot of noises going on inside that building, as if there are animals in there, probably going in through that roof. I'm not gonna open the door to find out. The car that's sitting there is tagged. It's current on its registration. However, it is not parked on an approved surface, gravel, asphalt, concrete. So that is a part of their citation letter as well. And then the grass and trees, just the general overgrowth of the property. If that 30 days deadline, if something's not done by that 30 days, the easiest thing for us to do is gonna be the grass and the overgrowth. And we have a mowing contractor, we have a landscape contractor that we've used on other projects that have become like this. The day that they don't get it done at 30 days, we contract them to do it. They're generally 7 to 10 days to get that work started or completed. So yes, it is on our radar, it's working. Our code requires 30 days for building issues. So that's kind of where it stands. They have roughly 4 weeks left, or 3 weeks or 2.5 weeks left. But we don't have high expectations, given that the ownership is out of Nevada. We don't see it as they may have much of a vested interest in it.
Is it occupied? Is there stuff in it? Or do we not know?
We don't know. I do know that there's 2 locks on the entire structure. Every other door is unlocked.
Okay.
So I wouldn't anticipate there's much, if anything, of value privately held inside of that storage unit.
And
It
does
does appear to be pretty well abandoned.
Is that a total floodplain area there, or is it not
It
floodplain?
is, it's
total-
completely within the floodplain.
Completely
Full building
floodplain.
under the floodplain.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
So
All right.
It is on our radar. It's
Thank you.
in the code enforcement process. Hopefully soon we'll have an update and we'll see some progress on it.
Okay. Thank you.
I guess I could also add, I've actually had inquiries, people wanting to buy that building and refurbish it, but it's unoccupied, it hasn't been used as a storage unit that's zoned R1, which is not allowed. So they would have to rezone it, do a site plan, and once you start explaining all that process to them, this great deal that they think they're gonna get out of the storage unit goes away, and it's just been deteriorating ever since, so. As you can see, it's kind of one of those catch-22. Can't really be brought up to code into our zoning code, the zoning, site plan, all the things.
Floodplain.
Floodplain issues, all these things. And there it sits.
Yeah,
So-
well, I mean, that was my asking about the floodplain, because it seems like it needs to go away. And so is there something that could come there, or is it just going to be an empty lot? But, I mean, we can't force them to tear it down or make it go away necessarily, but if it wasn't, if it was something that could, a piece of land that could be used for something, it could be like, find somebody who would
Yeah,
purchase
well,
it and
most
do
of
something
it-
with it. So I guess my idea is if it was, is it a piece of property that would be worth someone maybe with EDC or chamber or somebody going out, reaching out and say, hey, what if we find somebody that wants this piece of property, what can we put on that property?
Yeah, because I mean, I've had somebody inquire about it because they were interested in it, but then I think, like you said, it just kind of died because either no response from the owners or other issues.
Yeah, it could be. So there are several properties just to the west of there. They're owned by Bob Power. We've been working on a plan to fill those properties up above the flood. No, nothing started, but if it were combined with some of those,
He sold.
I was gonna say,
one of them,
at least
And
one was for
I was just about to ask
sale.
if they've been, if they're being kept up as well.
Okay.
And stuff and trees and stuff.
but if it were combined with those and brought up above the floodplain, some of it's in the floodway. You'd have to stay out of that, but there may be enough room, acre and a half maybe, to do something in a commercial area.
Okay.
If it was worth the investment of filling
Right.
up above the floodplain.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think discussion about that goes back to probably the, 2004, 2006 Lexington corridor plan.
Corridor plan, that's right.
Well, when you add on to that, to the property to the east of it now is a home that is for sale because the gentleman that owned that has passed away. So you really actually have kind of quite a piece of property there that would be nice if it was doable with something, but
Except for that.
Yeah.
except for that. And that was my whole thing,
Except for that
is
5
you
foot
know.
of water that-
But it's also such a visible part of DeSoto that it would be nice if it looked
And it could be a park.
much improved. Well, right.
Bob's old land, it used to have 4 homes on it.
Did it really? That
Yeah.
one piece?
When I grew up,
Yeah.
my grandmother lived in a couple of them.
Yeah.
And there's still a foundation.
Yeah, there's a couple of them in there, there's trees.
He had 2 pieces of property there?
And then
3.
Then there was a house
Okay.
next to it.
And then there's still
They
the
were all
house.
owned by something.
Okay, well, that was just kind of, I drive by it every day and I'm like, gosh,
Yeah, it
I
needs
wish this
cleaned
could
up.
be cleaned up or something done with it to
Right.
make it, I mean, if it's not,
That creek has, houses,
Yeah.
they could
That, yeah, that we can do.
no.
Redevelopment's gonna be a tougher nut to
Yeah,
crack.
yeah. Well, it looks like it with the floodplain and, I mean, I kind of figured that was going to be the case, but it still is like, wow, what could go there, you know? Swamp garden or something, I don't know. Okay, so my last, well, yeah, you know, there's something that could go there. My last kind of comment, question, request is kind of a small thing in the realm of what we all do here in DeSoto, but I've always had this thought that one of the good benefits of a small town is having a farmer's market. And we don't anymore. It was at the barn, and I can go on and why there's not one at the barn now, but that's kind of besides the point. So I was hoping that if I threw it out, maybe everybody would kind of brainstorm a little bit. But kind of my idea was, is it possible to start with something very non-formal for a year or so, where we allow or kind of put a plan together where maybe the west parking lot could be on Saturday mornings, where people could have a couple of stalls in one certain, or, you know, parking spots in one certain area where we keep most of it open, but maybe along the far east side that it would be, you know, they could park a vehicle and sell goods without having it to be, you know, charging them money and going out and formally try to find people, but just try to put maybe some things on Facebook and see if there'd be an interest, kind of more, we don't need it right now because there's probably not a lot of vegetables right now, but kind of into the, the July, August, when people have a lot of cucumbers and tomatoes and stuff, and there's always a desire for people to purchase things, and maybe kind of see if we can, over the next few years, make something grow and happen where we actually do. But, I've been involved with them before, and there's a lot that goes along to doing a really good farmer's market. By, number one, finding vendors. Number two, you need to have a market manager, somebody who runs it, and sets the rules, is there to set up, and if you're going to charge money to have the space, you need to make sure that they have insurance or pay taxes, and all the different things that go along with it. But my idea was to maybe try something a little bit less formal and see if there's a use by people in the city and a need by, or people who would want to just, local people to start with, just getting their things out. So just throwing it out as an idea. Maybe people can kind of brainstorm and think about it. Obviously, if the city is running it, it typically would probably fall under Parks and Rec or something, and I don't know that our guys there really want an extra thing to do. But just something that I think would be a amenity for the city.
Well, I like the idea. I think it's definitely going to need, if it's going to be part of the city, it's going to need a champion here in City Hall, somebody that's going to run it at whatever level. And if we start out small, that's going to be less effort than a large formal market. But I would like to see us investigate that a little more.
Another good place, maybe next down where the old pool, that flat space that's there, and there's parking.
Yeah.
Parking there.
Where was that? Where?
Next to the old pool, the
Oh, okay.
pool house.
Yeah.
Danny's brought up several times, but there's a good chunk of flat land there that set up several tents and plenty of parking.
And that's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Rob, what do you got tonight?
Couple things. One, the July 1st meeting, I will not be present. I'll be at Scout Camp. So just a heads up on that as we head to the July 4th weekend. Second, it's good to see that the right-of-ways, the steep right-of-ways at 83rd near Corliss and Waverly actually got mowed. It was getting tall enough that it was starting to create vision hazards, trying to turn off of Waverly and things onto 83rd. So good to see that mowed. Last, any update on Arcadian Estates as far as movement?
Well, they are starting their earthwork.
Brad.
Didn't we used to have the super sensitive mic in here?
No longer.
No longer, okay.
We'll give you a lapel mic to go with you.
That's right, okay.
It'll go with your camera, your webcam, and you can have it all the time.
Or we'll bring you a stool, you can just sit right
There you
there.
go.
I know they're starting to do some of the dirt, or just even
Yeah, we
broader
did have
update.
some issues with them during those heavy rainfall events. They just started, they put in their construction entrance and didn't put in a pipe or anything like that, so all this water was gushing out onto Waverly, so we got them to correct that. They are now working to do the storm drainage areas first, trying to get that settled so they don't have any issues with downpours and stuff like that. So they are well underway. I've also had some calls about parking personal vehicles up and down the streets, and we've got to move those on the north side of Waverly, so there's some suggestion.
And this is the original developer's original plat that was filed and everything?
Yes, it is following that plat, the letter.
Not an original developer.
Not the
Different
original
developers
development,
now, though?
but the same plat.
Yeah.
But they did agree to the pipe section.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Oh, the conduits, yeah.
Yeah,
all
all
that
those
still in
being
place,
installed.
yeah.
Will be.
And they set a box on the corner.
Okay.
So it is underway and it's moving along quickly past these hiccups. Right out the chute, we started keeping an eye out, as the residents are as well.
That's it.
Okay. Kevin Ritter, what do you got tonight?
Well, mentioning meetings that won't be here, I will be gone August 3rd and the September 20th meeting. I will be out of country, so
And then I only have one other thing, the roundabout looks like it's going great, but, it seems like folks are really having trouble figuring out which lane to go in. Is there any way to do any kind of in signage on the cones, telling which lane to go in? A lot of people are they're transversing into the oncoming traffic.
From which direction?
They,
You know, if you were going-
yeah, they get confused on where the lines and where the lanes are.
Right.
And so a lot of times it's more as you're coming, correct me if I'm wrong, but more as you're coming off of 91st, trying to figure out where to turn in onto.
I had that experience too.
But they were going against traffic that's coming out from Commerce, and a couple cars almost.
Yeah, my wife and I laughed because when they first did that, I almost started to turn into the wrong lane. And had it happened, coming off the highway was the left turn, and the first vehicle there that would have turned and met me face to face would have been a sheriff's vehicle. It's like,
So I don't know.
good thing I
don't
figured
know
out
if
where,
it's
but.
gonna have to be small, because, I mean, there isn't a whole lot.
Well, I think maybe some extra, some
Yeah, but there's some,
cones there off of 90.
like I
Cones
said,
are temporary tape, I don't know if some tape, sometimes.
Yeah. There's
Tape,
just-
sometimes a line is better than,
Yeah.
vertical.
like I said, I think the most confusion is if you're coming off of 91st onto Lexington. Yeah.
Right, so that, but is there also a problem coming off the off-ramp from K10, making that left turn to go north?
I don't think there
I
is
think
as much as
everybody's
there
okay
was,
there.
when they were on the other side, there was.
Yeah.
But now if they're on this side, it's just.
Okay,
I'll have to drive it, I haven't driven.
all right, we'll look at it.
I've just seen
Well,
multiple
and
vehicles.
with the cones, there's just a lot of cones, so some of the striping is confused in that. I mean, just, yeah, it's,
And then I had one other thing, since the traffic on, or the construction on K10 both ways, it has created an awful lot of traffic between, on 95th between Kill Creek and Lexington. High speed, is there any temporary signage that we could put up that says this is a very narrow road, slow down, something, I don't,
or,
speed.
or maybe even get the sheriff to put the,
Yeah, the sign.
the radar sign out there.
Yeah, I just
Because of
don't
the
think any
construction.
or any enforcement will do any good, because, you know, there's real no places to sit. But today, I come over the hill and there was four good Dodge dualies in my path, and they're only, doing at least 50. I'm just really worried about that, and there was more cars coming off there, so they're really windy, that's what she says. I just don't want anybody to get me.
Yeah. I wonder if like some temporary speed limit signs? right,
Just
turn
something
on?
that, you know, narrow roads and, keep reduce speeds.
Okay.
Something, I mean, just, I'm not trying to make that a detour by no means, but they've already found it.
Oh, it's, yeah.
No rush.
Yeah, we'll see what we can do.
That's all I
Okay. Kevin Huntermike.
Gosh, I don't know where to start, so I think I'll just pass.
Okay.
I'll do the same, I will pass as well.
I'll make a motion, we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we're adjourned, everybody.